Welcome back to today's video, guys. Today's video, I'm going to be replacing the rear subframe bushings with solid battle version bushings. And ever since the last video where I replaced the lower control arms in the rear, you know, the rear lower control arm, rear toe link, and rear traction arm, I have to fix alignment. But the way I did in the last video was not good enough, so I thought since the car is already up, I might as well just take out the rear subframe and change out the rubber bushings for some of these solid ones. Now, since I did weld my diff, the rear already does have some like poly bushings at the softest poly bushings I could find, because I wanted the rear to have some give while it's like clunking so it wouldn't break anything. So I'm gonna go solid subframe bushings, but then keep the poly bushings in the diff. In order to get started, you have to make sure, of course, the car is safe when it's up in the air. So my method for being safe is having some wheels under. But first, just make sure to take off your exhaust, because of course it's gonna get in the way of you taking out the subframe. Take off the wheels, and then I'm gonna use my big 6-ton jack stands for my truck, and then keep the car up. The next thing you're gonna have to remove is the caliper, because obviously the line is still connected right here. You have to remove the shock, your coilover or whatever. You do that either from the top in the trunk, or you can do it from these two 19s, I believe. The caliper is, I believe, is two 14s. Take it off from these slide pins and then slide it off and hook it onto your coilover. You have to remove your sway bar. So what I'm gonna do first is probably remove this heat shield for the drive shaft and exhaust, and then remove this brace for the car, the chassis. Alright, hopefully you guys can see, but the drive shaft is now disconnected from the diff. It wasn't too crazy. It was actually, the bolts are actually pretty easy to break for some reason, which means I should probably like do a bolt check around the whole suspension area relative like to the diff, because I haven't really bolt checked it since I have this welded diff installed. When it's welded and you're taking a turn in a parking lot, it like chirps or it clunks a lot, which means it like shakes the rear end a lot, which means it could loosen up bolts. The way I removed these lines for the e-brake is that you have to take like a little screwdriver and pry these apart from this bracket. There's two of them, and then probably remove this bracket as well, so you have enough slack in order to slide it off of this thing like that. It's like a, oh sh**, it hit my lens. Okay. It's almost like a throttle body cable. And then it should just be these 4 bolts, or sorry, these front 2 fat ones. These are probably like what, 19s? And then in the rear, and then also you have to remove these 4 bolts in the back on each side. This is what they look like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm gonna do that, and you'll see me pull the subframe out soon. Now I should just be able to slide out. I should just be able to. I forgot the ABS lines. The ABS sensor, I believe is what it's called, is stuck in there. And I just shot some WD-40 in it, hopefully to get it to loosen up. But it does not want to slide out. So I'm gonna have to let that soak for a little bit more before I could yank on it more. This sleeve was stuck on this sleeve right here, which is why I couldn't tilt forward. Now it's free. I just had to get a pry bar and get to lean forward a little bit and then set out. Alright, I finally got the ABS sensors out. The way to remove it is you get the vice grips, grip the sensor, shoot some WD-40, rock it back and forth, shoot some more WD-40, and take a pair of pliers, a prying bar, and wedge it in this crack right here, and while you're wiggling it, pull it, like pry it out, and then cover it up, and that's that. God damn it, Zach. So the subframe is in the garage where it's wet, or where it's not wet to work on. And these ones, I believe I'll just be using an air gun just to push both sides in, and then it will like collapse where the slit is. There's a slit on both sides of the bushing, and that'll make it super easy to get out. That won't require any cutting or anything crazy where you could possibly damage your subframe from cutting too far. Now for the back ones, it's a 22mm socket to take off this big nut. And there's a bushing right here, and then I'll be using MAP gas to burn and loosen up this bushing. Now MAP gas burns a lot faster than propane does, and it possibly might burn hotter, but I am not sure. So here's my little cheap like Harbor Freight air gun. Do not ask me why this thing's meant. It came like this. I have no idea if it's supposed to be like that. Oh, it just popped out. I don't know if you saw that. Oh, okay. Alright, so you see how easy that came out? I should say. This one will take a lot longer just because there's no slit. And you could use a saw and cut it and create a slit yourself so that it slides out easy, but you could risk damaging the actual bracket itself. What I'm going to do is just clean up around the surface right here, and then paint some Pour 15 around the cracks, not the cracks, these chips I made from the air gun, just to protect it a little bit longer. Now, if you're curious to why I'm going from a soft rubber bushing to a full-on piece of metal, that is because in the future, this car's purpose will be mainly for like back roads, track, drift, etc. And with this much flex on a 25-year-old bushing, it's prone to cracking and breaking, which could cause more clunk than just the diff itself. The diff's bushings are from Strong Flex, and they're specifically the road application, which is the softest compound. Alright, so the front subframe bushings are labeled. This is the front top. This is the front where the guibo is. I think there's only one way to put them on because they're all different sizes. This goes on the bottom, but we'll do this last because this is where the bolt slips in and holds it up. So you take your rubber mallet or whatever, smack it in. I'll do this side. Now for the fun part, it fits on. Alright, now that's on. This is the correct attachment. This is for propane. Should be a really good flame now. So what you're gonna have to do is heat up around this whole thing, and then after a couple minutes, you'll take a hammer and smack up the bushing. Okay, it's stinky, nice and hot. Now it's already smacked it out just to make sure I can record it. Woo! And for the bushings in the rear, how do you know which way it goes in? Well, first of all, they're both the same height, whereas if you look at the bushing, the old rubber bushing, one side sticks out more than the other. And between the front and the rear, the hole is different. So for the most forward part, the hole is bigger to fit onto that bigger part of the bolt. In the rear, it's smaller for where it's supposed to be for the threads. So I'll show you the most forward one. It goes all the way on, but for the for the rear, it can't go all the way past that bulge. So when I first got the car, this one, 3 years ago, they gave me front and rear brake pad and rotors, and I never changed out the rears just because I didn't feel like I needed to. But now I'm looking at it. Yeah, so now I'm gonna change these out for some fresh ones, hopefully, and new brake pads. So 3, 2, 1, just like that. New brake pads and new rotors are on, and all the bushings are in. So now I'm gonna attempt to put the subframe in by myself, and if I can't do it by myself, I'm gonna get my girlfriend or my baby sister to help me line it up. For the subframe bolts, 2 front and then the 8 in the rear, I'm gonna put a tiny bit of anti-seize, just because, you know, it's part of the subframe, or it's part of the chassis, and I don't want it to corrode and have a, you know what I mean. Lots of checking back and forth, just so you don't make sure you kink something. For the front lower bolts, when you first take it off, it comes with these like metal insulators between the bolt and the bushing. It acts like a washer. Make sure you thread it in by hand first, and I'm gonna put some anti-seize. $76 for the bracket to the subframe. It's the 2 nuts. And then the 8 small nuts from the subframe to the chassis are $42. A little update on the car and how it feels. I did test drive it for a day for about like, I don't know, 10-15 miles on back roads, and it feels a lot better. Now when I did do like a little clutch kick, there's no more wheel hop, which was a crazy feeling because every time I would do it, the rear end would clunk a tiny bit. Now it's super solid and planted in corners, and it feels awesome. Also, another update on the rear arms, since I did do an alignment at home after reinstalling the subframe, is that the toe on the passenger side in the rear is tweaking. So both eccentric bolts for the toe links are fully pulled in, and they're locked out, so that you have to worry about adjustment from there. But one arm still has a lot of adjustment while the other doesn't. So I do not know what is wrong with that yet. I haven't really dug into it because I haven't had time. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it useful, but I'll see you guys in the next video.